Hi everyone, thank you for joining. We'll be starting in around 8 minutes, so if you haven't already gotten some refreshments, please do help yourself, and yeah, thank you for being here. Hi everyone, if everyone could get seated, we're going to start in a few minutes. So grab your drinks, come back from your toilet break, and find your chair, and we look forward to starting off in a couple minutes. Thanks everyone. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Cybersecurity and Data Protection workshop. Thank you for everyone who's joined us in person and also those of you who are joining us over the live stream. Thank you for taking the time today to learn a bit more about cybersecurity and data protection. We're going to start off by an introduction from Victoria White from the British High Commission in Pretoria. So without further ado, I'll hand over the mic.
Great. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see so many people in person, and to everybody online, welcome. I really hope you enjoy the session that we have lined up today. I hope you will learn a lot. We're really interested in your feedback as well, so please do come and speak to any of us afterwards if you have more questions than we have time to cover today. And if any of you are interested in doing little interviews with us, then please do just speak to one of us. So my name is Vicky White, and I'm the head of cyber for the British High Commission in Pretoria. And I'll just quickly walk you through the agenda that we have this morning. So as Shelby mentioned, we're talking about cybersecurity and data protection issues, and we'll hear from Diane, who's head of cybersecurity at Capitec. I'm really excited about her session. Then we'll hear from my colleague Smes. She will be talking to us about the importance of good cyber hygiene. And after the break, we'll hear from Shelby about the Cybersecurity and Data Protection Toolkit that the British High Commission has built together with the South African Cybersecurity Hub. And this toolkit is good for small businesses, but anybody can use it. So we'll talk you through that toolkit. It's completely free to use, and we think it's a really great resource. Judith is then going to give us an overview of PAPIA. And then we'll have our interactive panel session, which you'll get to ask us any questions that you'd like. Please be kind when you ask us questions. And as I mentioned, afterwards we'll have a little networking session for everybody in the room where you'll get a chance to ask us more questions. So this event this morning and the toolkit is part of the UK government's Digital Access Programme. And really this program is aimed at improving safe and secure and equitable digital access. It's our largest capacity building program that we have overseas, and we operate here in South Africa, but also in Kenya, Nigeria, Brazil, and Indonesia. And we're really hoping through this program we're able to build trust in digital systems and improve resilience to cyber threats for citizens, for businesses, and for governments. I want to thank Citi for hosting us this morning and partnering with us on this event. I also want to thank all of my colleagues who have put in a lot of hard work in bringing this event to you, and all of the hard work that they've done on the Digital Access Programme over the last, 18 months or so. And to Diane for being our keynote speaker this morning. So enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Diane now. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Good. I'm not a public speaker. I'm a cyber person, so I must admit I'm extremely nervous. But let's hope we can do this some justice. So I am the cyber security manager for Capitec Bank. Have been in IT. Can you hear me? Okay. Have been in IT for about 32 years, and it shows. I walked into the first board meeting at Capitec 6 months ago, and one of the board members said to me, he looked me up and down and he said, "You're not what I expected the cybersecurity manager to look like." I said, "What did you expect the cybersecurity manager to look like?" And he said, "Well, you're not wearing a black hoodie, and you're probably 30 years older than we expected you to be." And yes, I'm grey and old, but experience counts for a lot. So that being said, the other thing, I was in a board meeting about 2 weeks ago, and our financial director said to me, he said, "I don't suppose you thought when you entered into cybersecurity that you'd be fighting a war." And it's amazing that a lot of people don't realize that the war between Ukraine and Russia has a direct impact on the cybersecurity world. So it is something to bear in mind, that we're not only about information inside the organization, but threats from outside. And we can talk about that later over coffee, if you like. So a little bit about Capitec. How many of you have got a Capitec bank account? Well done. Marcelo and I were debating before the session how many people would have a Capitec bank account. And my parting line there is congratulations, but also I stay awake at night so that your money is safe with us. And that's really the role that I play. Capitec, as many of you may know, is 21 years old this year. We have 17 million clients, so you're among good friends, and about 14,000 employees across the country. So a sizable growth in 20 years, and with that comes a lot of challenge. And the challenge there is about the fact that Capitec is a data-driven organization. We're all about the information that we have. The information we have about our clients, the information we have about our employees, and the information that we have about our suppliers. And those we all call our crown jewels, and I'm sure somebody is going to tell you more about that later, so I won't bore you too much. But the important thing here is that you have trust in Capitec. You put your money there instead of under your mattress at night. And if we break that trust through a data breach, through a ransomware attack, through fraud, that trust is broken and Capitec as a bank will cease to exist. And it's vitally important that cybersecurity plays an enormous part in that, protecting the data assets that we have, the crown jewels that we hold about all of those parties, is extremely important. And that's the role of cybersecurity in the organization. Before I joined Capitec, I spent 7 years as a consultant in the cybersecurity space. And I was fortunate enough to work with some extremely interesting and critical to the country's economy, small businesses. One of them, a small IT shop, 15 guys, great idea, selling services to some of the biggest corporates in the country. But guess what? They had no clue what information security or cybersecurity was about. But because they were dealing with corporates, the corporates wanted to be sure that the trust, the relationship between them was sound. And they had to complete lots of funky spreadsheets to confirm that they had the necessary controls in place. And it's something they'd never considered. A couple of developers sitting in a shared location, some of them sitting at home. Why was security necessary? Well, guess what? If you want to build a trust relationship and offer services to a corporate, it's critical. Last year, I spent a lot of time working with a group of companies that some of us love to hate, a group of debt collectors. And again, debt collectors, so organizations, whether it be retailers, whether it be banks, send information about their clients, whether they want to keep them as clients or not is debatable. But they send that information to a debt collector to go and collect on their behalf. If you know anything about the debt collection business, the margins are very small. The debt collector doesn't get much money for what he collects. It's kind of cents in the rand. But if you take an organization like Capitec, if they hand somebody over, and that's a very negative process, so let's not go too much into that, but they hand somebody over, they've got to send information about that person to the debt collector. But a lot of these organizations are very small. They were an attorney that decided on a side hustle he could make some money. And so they grew out of 1- and 2-man or woman organizations into something that is quite critical to a number of corporate organizations. But an organization like Capitec has to hand over crown jewel information to those debt collectors. I worked with one who had one IT guy. He'd had a relationship with this IT guy for 20 years. And he had no clue what this guy was doing. He's the owner of the organization, and in a regulated industry, he's accountable. If his IT guy had misconfigured something, was stealing something on the side to sell to his mate, he wouldn't know. It was, again, implicit trust. Sorry, mic lessons from the side. So it's very important, no matter what you do, where you are, who you work with, who you work for, that protecting crown jewels information is part of your DNA. Whether you're the IT guy working with an organization, whether you're a small business owner, you're accountable for your crown jewels information. And I know there's a session later about POPIA and the importance of that, so I'm not going to delve into that. What we often forget as small businesses is that we have crown jewels outside of personal information. If you are a baker and you bake the best cookies in the world, you have recipes that are unique to you. If you grow, let's take Mrs. Bull's chutney. I don't know if anybody eats Mrs. Bull's chutney, but the recipe for Mrs. Bull's chutney is worth a lot of money. It is what Mrs. Bull's chutney as a business is built on. Remember that you're not only protecting information about your employees, but you're protecting information about why you exist, what makes you who you are. And often, small businesses forget about that. So guess what? Small businesses have no budget for information or cybersecurity. They very often don't have resources, but they have very important trust relationships that they need to maintain. So what is my top tip? My top tip is to know what those crown jewels are. Know where they are, because that's equally important, and know how they are protected. And I think the rest of today is going to equip you to do that in the most amazing way possible. I've had a look at the toolkit. The toolkit I wish that I had it 30 years ago. I've spent 30 years of my career building a toolkit of my own, and you have one here for free. And I think it's awesome. So take it on board, use it. I think it'll equip you either whichever end of the equation you're on very, very well. And I think that's my story.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll give you all a chance to ask some questions later on as part of the panel. But I think it was a really great way to start off this session. So thank you, Victoria, or Vicky, keeping it very formal, for your introduction from the British High Commission and for making all of this possible. And thank you, Diane, for taking the time to be here today. I know that all of you will really appreciate that input. So I'm going to take it on to the next session from my colleague Smes, who will be giving you an overview of cybersecurity hygiene and basics delivered by the KPMG team. So Smes, I'll let you come up and properly introduce yourself and get your session going.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible? Okay, perfect. And welcome to our first session for today. My name is Sibahle Nhleko. I am a senior analyst in cyber working for KPMG South Africa. And this first session is going to be focusing on cybersecurity hygiene basics and how you can implement this in your business. So I'm so happy again to see that we have a variety of SMMEs in the room, those that are looking to go into the space of owning their own businesses, and also for those joining us virtually. I hope you do enjoy the session. So the first question, I'm sure you wonder about, I think there's a bit of a lag in my presentation. Sorry about that. So the first question you're probably wondering about is, what is cybersecurity hygiene? So these are a set of basic practices that you can implement in your business in order to make yourself resilient from different viruses and diseases. Over the past couple of years, I'm sure all of us here have had to take on traditional hygiene measures in order to limit the spread of viruses and diseases, while the same can be applied to your cybersecurity hygiene. And that's what you should implement in your business, again, to make you resilient to various cyber attacks. So we'll be going over a variety of topics today. The first one being protecting your business online, password safety and email security, using your devices smartly and securely, and the different types of cyber attacks to be aware of and how to mitigate your businesses against those different attacks. The first topic is protecting your business online. Sorry, I just keep checking that the screens are actually showing the presentation. And the first things first is your email security. As an SMME, I'm sure your email account is the life of your business. You use that for your social media platforms, for your banking profiles, to receive and make orders, and much more, I'm sure. So there are various amounts of tips that you should implement in order to ensure that your email account remains secure. So the first two is do not click on emails from strangers and do not click on the links that you receive from those strangers. Doing this can open yourself up to different types of malware that you can receive, and you can click on these links unassumedly, and it can lead you to a lot of problems. So as much as you should ask yourself, why am I receiving this email? Is it something that I should be expecting to receive? Is there someone that I know of that is emailing me? Just apply extra caution to the emails that you receive on a daily basis. Do not share your personal information with strangers. Later on in the session today, we'll be talking about POPI, but this has been even more important, how to protect your personal data. You should refer to trusted guidance for help. So a lot of things that we hear from SMMEs is that there's a lot of information that is available online, and it's sort of difficult to sort of pick and choose which one could you use as trusted guidance. But luckily, the British High Commission has developed a Cybersecurity and Data Protection Toolkit to help you in this journey. And in fact, in that toolkit, there's a dedicated section on your email security and protecting your reputation. So what is the difference between spam and phishing? Usually we can talk about email security. One thing that you always think about is the keywords, is between spam and phishing. So spam is that unsolicited emails that you receive. They usually hopefully go into your junk folder, but sometimes they do not. So spam is usually those emails that are sent in sort of order to sell you something or sort of advertise some sort of product or service. And I'm sure many of those you do receive. So a difference between spam and phishing. So phishing is more dangerous. So this is when there's a fraudulent attempt to gain access to your confidential information and to sort of sell something to you. And sometimes those links that you received in phishing emails can also lead to you receiving malware in your devices. So here is an example of a phishing email. So usually you have the logo on those emails. So here we have Netflix. And you may assume that, okay, this is an official email that I'm receiving from Netflix. But you need to apply extra caution to reading those emails and trying to see for different tips or guidance you can use to sort of detect whether this is a phishing email or not. So usually these emails are designed to make you respond with a sort of urgency, and this is to make you react more emotionally. So in this email you see, we've cancelled your membership. It sounds very urgent, it sounds very important, and it's trying to force you to respond and trying to force you to click on those links. There's an incorrect reference. So here you've received an email from Netflix, but the first line says, hello, iTunes, let us know that something has happened. So that's again is another way of detecting that, okay, this is not an email that is for me. There's also a fake URL, so a fake link that you can see on your on this email. Usually when you hover over these URLs, you'll then see that this is not actually a link that is directed to your Netflix account, and it would be something else. There's also poor grammar in these emails. adversaries create these emails in bulk, and they don't really pay attention to the detail, and that's a way for you to pay attention to the detail. So what can you do to protect yourself and to ensure that you have email security in your business? So first things first is to apply caution to every email that you receive. Think before you click. Again, why am I receiving this email? Just think about that as well. Be cautious of sharing your email addresses. A lot of us share our information online without even realizing or thinking about why am I sharing my email address with this person? Don't respond to spam messages. I know a lot of us may be tempted to respond to these messages, say, please don't email me again, but do not do that. Simply just delete the email. Download spam filtering tools. So these are tools that you can use that would scan your incoming emails according to against predefined factors like IP addresses, the content, the header of the email. And they can also use other algorithms to try and detect whether do they send this email to your inbox folder or just straight to your junk folder. But sometimes they may not all end up in your junk folder, and this is when you should remember these different tips that we're learning about today. You should also use antivirus software for the devices that you use in your business. And I'm sure this is something that you've heard about a lot. Again, the toolkit is available there. There's a number of tools that are available that you can download and use in your businesses. These tools are for a variety of operating systems that you may use. And then lastly, avoid using your business email address, especially for personal stuff. As an SMME, it is advisable for you to have your personal email account and then your business email account, and to sort of not mix the two, because that is when you'll be more susceptible to different cyber harms. So the next topic is securing your device, and this is very important as an SMME. I'm sure you'll be running a business either using your computer, laptop, your smartphone, even our smartwatches. So it's also very important to secure those devices as well. So how can you do that? Install security software. This is extremely important. Never skip an update. All of us see those notifications for when you should be getting your updates. Make sure you install those, and don't skip those. Customize your browser security settings. So a lot of our browsers are not set up to be secure by default. So that's when it's your responsibility to go into your browser and enable a few security features. That can be disabling pop-ups, making sure that updates are installed automatically. There's a number of ways that you can make sure that your browser is set up securely. Clear your cache and your browsing history. As an SMME, you may not even have your a dedicated working space. Maybe you may be using an internet cafe to do your business affairs. This is also super important that once you've logged into that computer that is not dedicated to you and your business, that you should be clearing your cache and your browsing history. And log out of your accounts when you're done. Make sure that you are doing this, especially nowadays, we're all working from home, majority of us. So your devices you're using, you might be sharing with other members of your family. Just make sure that everyone has their own profile and logging out of those different accounts as well. And watch what you download. Making sure that you're downloading from reputable websites. I know, you may be tempted to be downloading that series illegally. It's not best to do that. And use a complex password. We'll be going into this depth in the next section about password safety. So again, emphasis on logging out and making sure that you do it. Log out of all your accounts after using them. That includes your banking apps as well. Log out of those after you finish using those. Keep your computer updated with the latest antivirus software. I think that is pretty self-explanatory. This is very important, and that will be probably the overriding theme in all of our sessions today. Always lock your computer. Just like you lock your house when you leave it to protect your household contents, the same applies to your computers as well and the devices that you're using. After you finish using it, and if you're walking away from it, just make sure that it is locked. Avoid using free Wi-Fi. So this is a very important one. Most of these Wi-Fi connections are unencrypted, which means that anyone with the right tools can intercept your communications and then read them, and that exposes you, your business, your customers' data. It's not a good thing to do. And also, there's nothing that's free in this world. Usually, with these free Wi-Fi connections, they're selling your data to advertisers in order to pay for the service. It is not. Don't do it. Password safety. So there's a lot of passwords that you need to use for the different accounts that we hold, and this may make you a bit more relaxed into like maybe using the same passwords across all your different accounts, and maybe using simpler passwords. This is not good. Your password should be a combination of phrases and numbers, symbols, combination of uppercase and lowercase. So usually what we advise is that you think of a phrase that you may use, and you replace those different characters in that phrase with letters, symbols. So for example, we have this one, Mary had a little lamb. So you can see how we're replacing the different characters and replacing with characters just to make your password more secure. And a few tips on keeping your password safe. First things first, do not write them down. A lot of us do this. Again, you shouldn't. Writing your password on a sticky note and sticking it underneath your laptop, underneath your keyboard, that is not password hygiene. Use multi-factor authentication. So a lot of us may be familiar with that with your banking apps, where you see when you're making a transaction, after you've logged in, it will also ask you for an OTP, a one-time password. That is an example of two-factor authentication. So that is using something else to authenticate yourself into a service other than just your password. Never share your passwords. Even though you may work in a small team, you may feel like, okay, you know what, I trust Shelby, we can share a password. That is not advisable to do as well. Everyone, again, should have their own profile and their own passwords as well. And again, change it as prompted. In your businesses, you may want to start thinking about creating password policies. So again, there you'll state then how regularly should your passwords be changed. And this is what defines it. Maybe you will decide every 6 months you change your password, and just make sure that everyone in your business is also changing it as prompted. So the different cyber attacks. Viruses and worms fall under the umbrella of malware. And we'll just be explaining those. So viruses are like a flu virus, and they spread from host to host. So it's usually through a file that you can receive. There's an executable file. And if you click on it, that may spread the virus on your host as well. And then there's worms, which work the same as a virus, but they're able to spread more automatically and quickly. They don't necessarily have to keep clicking on this executable file for the worm to spread onto your networks. Spyware and adware. So spyware are applications that gather confidential information. For example, key login devices that will track what sort of keystrokes are you using on your laptop or your devices. Then we have adware, and applications that automatically display or download unwanted advertising material. Again, this would usually be on your browsers. So if you install ad blockers, different filtering tools, this can help you prevent against these different types of malware. Ransomware and denial of service attacks. So ransomware, it basically restricts your access to devices and devices that you're using, and it encrypts your data until you pay some sort of ransom payment. So this is usually in the form of Bitcoin. And this form of cyberbullying is actually the most common type of malware out right now. And it can literally bring your business to a halt. And then we have distributed denial of service attacks. So these ensure that your service is not usable. So your capacity, for example, if you have an e-commerce payment system, so this will remove your customer's ability to access that system, because they spam the attackers spam your servers through different means, and just to ensure that your services are not accessible. So in this context, your business is losing money as attack is at play. So how exactly how can you detect an attack? We've gone through a number of these attacks. So maybe asking yourself, like, what exactly can I do in my business to ensure that I'm not vulnerable to these attacks? Unusual and mysterious emails. I think we've covered this on email security, just applying extra caution to your emails that you receive. Messages about your password being changed. In the services that we use now, you notice that passwords that you do set up, if you do change your password, you do receive an automated email to say you've changed your password. But if you haven't done this and you receive an email of this kind, then that's another way to detect that, okay, maybe my systems, it has been compromised. Being locked out of an account or device, if you haven't changed your password again, and then all of a sudden you can't access your account. Suspicious and unusual pop-ups. So if you detect any suspicious activity in your business or in the accounts, this is already another way to maybe detect that you are under attack. Slower than normal connections. This is the last way. So again, it's really important to refer to trusted guidance if you suspect an attack. So for example, if you're running your business on like using a Gmail account, it's usually best to go through that service providers. They usually have trusted guidance that you can use, or again, that's when the toolkit comes in, where it can help you be aware of the different types of attacks that are out there and how you can protect your business against them. So how can you recover from an attack? The first thing is to change your password. This will limit anyone else's access to your accounts and your systems. Determine what has been lost or compromised. This is an exercise you should do, because you cannot get to the root of the issue until you determine how exactly have I been compromised. Notify your contacts. This has become extremely important now with the POPI Act, where you do have to do that, where you do have to inform your customers or those that you have their personal information. You have to notify them that, okay, I have been compromised. Follow antivirus recovery steps. Again, this in the form of updating your antivirus. Usually, these different service providers, they usually have a patch for different attacks, so follow those steps that they provide to you. And backing up your files. So as a business, it's really important to ensure that your files are backed up, and then in the event that you do get attacked, that's when you can rely on those backed up files in order to recover. Determine the root cause of the attack. So depending on how mature your business is, that's when maybe you'd want to involve third-party incident response, management services, or maybe forensic services. So again, determine the root cause of the attack. And how can you prevent cyber attacks? Strong passwords. We spoke briefly about password safety, passwords hygiene, and how to create strong passwords. Be aware of unfamiliar apps or unusual messages and or pop-ups. So again, this goes back to suspicious activity that you may see on your systems. Use a secured network for Wi-Fi. Again, let's remember the tip on not using free Wi-Fi or for running our businesses. Make sure your software is up to date. This is the best way to protect yourself, because as attackers are always looking for flaws in our connections and our apps. So this is how they would get to you if you do not ensure that your software is up to date. Enable security and antivirus features. We spoke briefly about customizing your browser settings and making sure that those are secure. And again, on making sure that your antivirus is installed and up to date. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I know I covered a lot in a short period of time, but we have an amazing panel here that will be ready for your questions at the end of this event. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sibs, for your presentation a really good overview of cybersecurity hygiene, and we'll be going into a bit more detail on some of the things that she spoke about as we go through the toolkit and also as Judith goes through Popia. So we're going to take a quick comfort break now. So if everyone, you can get up, you can get some refreshments, go to the toilet, whatever you need to do. If you're on the live stream, you can do it in the comfort of your own house, and we'll be back at 10:50. So if everyone wants to take a break, those of you who are watching from home, we'll be back in a little bit with the toolkit overview. Right, thank you everyone. Hi everyone, if you could make your way back to your seats, we're going to be starting the next session in about 2 minutes. So everyone, make your way back to your seats. Thank you everyone. Hi everyone, we're just about to get started, so if you can please sit down so that we can stay according to the agenda. And also for all of those on the live stream, we're about to get started, so get comfortable in your seats at home. So if everyone, thank you. For those of you on the live stream, we're just waiting for everyone to get situated who's in the room with us today at City. I'll get started in about 20 seconds, so 20-second warning to everyone in the room. Fab. I'll get started. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you for staying on for the second half of today's workshop. So I'm going to be taking the next 45 minutes or so to walk you through the Cybersecurity and Data Protection Toolkit that was referenced by many of our presenters already today. So the Cybersecurity and Data Protection Toolkit was developed by the British High Commission in Pretoria in partnership with the Department for Communications and Digital Technologies and the South African Cybersecurity Hub. Now, before I go into what's actually in this toolkit and how it can support SMEs and entrepreneurs like yourselves, I'm actually going to have us all take a step back and think about why we're here as entrepreneurs and SMEs and why this toolkit was developed specifically with SMEs in mind. So SMEs make up about 98% of South African businesses. They employ around 50%, actually more than 50% of the workforce, and they make up around 40% of the GDP. So SMEs are kind of a big deal when it comes to South African economy, aren't they? Yeah, thank you. And more SMEs are becoming digitally enabled, and they're taking advantage of the opportunities that the cyberspace provides. But with opportunities comes risk. And the risk that we're talking about today is the risk of cyber attacks. But what we're finding is that a lot of SMEs do not have the controls in place to support themselves and protect themselves in the instance of an attack. Now, this is worrying because there are many different threats and considerations and vulnerabilities that they're putting themselves up for when they don't have the controls in place. So we think about business continuity. Sib's talked a bit about, if your business or system is hacked, actually then your customers can't come to your website, or your servers are down so you can't even run your website. So that has obviously very serious implications. Another one is that people come in and take the personal data of your customers or even of your employees. Now that's not great, not only from a business continuity perspective, but also from a regulatory perspective. Judith is going to talk about this a bit more in terms of POPIA and the regulatory fines, which can be really detrimental to a small business, but also from a reputational perspective. As Diane mentioned, people want to trust the businesses who they give their data to. And if you are vulnerable to a data breach, or if you demonstrate that you're not protecting your customers' data, you're going to lose those customers, and you're going to lose their potential customers as well. So cybersecurity is not just a big organization consideration or threat. It's really important also for SMEs. So when we think about how important SMEs in South Africa are to the economy, when we think about the fact that they're becoming more digitally enabled, and also when we think about the fact that historically they don't have the controls in place to support their cybersecurity online, we realize that actually there's a big opportunity here to support SMEs in their cybersecurity and data protection journeys, and that's why the toolkit has been developed for you in mind. And that's why hopefully you're all here, so that you can learn a bit more about how to protect yourselves and how to use this really great resource. So I'm actually going to start off by going through the toolkit. As mentioned today, this is completely free. Usage is unrestricted, so you don't need a subscription to go into the toolkit. There's no sort of end date in terms of when you can stop using it. So as long as you have the website and you can type it into your browser, you can access all the free resources in here. Now, the toolkit tackles some of the key challenges that we know SMEs have in terms of implementing cybersecurity controls. So we know, I think someone talked about it, but SMEs, one of the key things is your time is limited. There are many different hats that a lead of an SME needs to have. So you don't have the luxury of having a cybersecurity team. That means actually the role of finding all of the trusted resources online and finding all the right guidance can be really time consuming and can be really overwhelming. The toolkit supports this by actually, the Global Cyber Alliance has brought together a number of trusted resources and have put it in one place to support your cybersecurity journey. So you can think about this as the golden source. So you know that when you come to the toolkit, these are trusted resources that you can use, and these are the recommended resources. Another restraint, obviously cost. I mentioned this is completely free. So don't get bogged down by all of the things online that are asking for these extortionate prices to give you cybersecurity training. Start here and learn what you can do from this toolkit. The other thing is that cybersecurity knowledge. We hear cybersecurity and we think we need to be technical experts. The reality is you don't need to be a cybersecurity expert to get the basics in place. And the Cybersecurity Toolkit does a really good job of making that really clear. So not only are there resources in the toolkit, but there are also guidebooks and videos that you can use to learn about cybersecurity. So Sibs talked about ransomware. There are videos in the toolkit that give you an overview of what ransomware is, what it means for your business, and what the implications are. So it's more than actually just the free resources. There's actually a lot of free training around cybersecurity to give you the basic understanding that you need. And I think that's another point for us, is that this is not only for you, but also as people in this room or watching the live stream, you also have a responsibility to support your business or your community become more cyber secure. So also think about this session as not only a session for yourselves, but also a session where you can learn about how to use the toolkit to then teach your community about how to be more cyber secure. The train the trainer approach is always the best one. And that's the way in which we can make not only the people on this live stream and in the room more cyber secure, but actually spread that out and make the broader SME community more cyber secure in South Africa. So now I am actually going to go into the toolkit. So this toolkit has 3 key sections. So it has the Global Cyber Alliance Cybersecurity Toolkit. So I'll be talking in more detail about this section in a little bit. But you'll see that it has 6 key areas. These are essentially the key steps that the Global Cyber Alliance has identified for SMEs to take in their cybersecurity journey. Within each of these, and I'll show you in a bit, have a number of resources and guidance packs that you can use to, for example, update your defenses and create stronger passwords. The next section is around data protection. So this is primarily in the South African context around how to be POPIA compliant. POPIA can be really scary, especially when you think about the financial implications of not being compliant. So this is really your one-stop shop. Judith will give you a bit more guidance later in terms of what POPIA is and what POPIA means for your business. I won't go into that now. But what you'll see is that the best place to start when you come to the toolkit is actually opening up the POPIA Toolkit guidance. This will then give you an overview of the key steps you should take, and also will help you understand why all of the other templates are here from a POPIA perspective. Again, the GCA and our team at KPMG and the British High Commission have brought everything together in one place. So hopefully, when you're making your business more POPIA compliant and you're going through that journey, you can go through the guidance and the checklist, and then also open any templates that you feel are relevant for your business as well as part of that journey. The very last section is a really great one once you start implementing the controls in your business. So this is Exercise in a Box, again, a completely free resource from your business. It helps organizations test and practice their response to a cyber attack. So something really practical that you can use to understand what your business would do in the event of a cyber attack. So let me just open up one of these so you can see how the toolkit works. And what I'll do is walk you through how the toolkit is arranged, how the resources are provided to you, and then I'll actually walk through all of the steps in a bit more detail. So what I did is I just clicked on one of those, and then you click on the small business template. What you'll see the 6 sections here, so you can actually, once you click into one, you can see all of the sections, all of it, what we call them toolboxes. So the toolboxes as part of the toolkit, and we'll start with one of them. I'll just go through one of them with you today. So step 1 is know what you have. I'll go into a bit more detail, but you'll see a summary of what that means for a business. In each of the toolboxes, you'll also have a video overview. Again, great for your own learning. Also great if you ever want to run cybersecurity training, either with your business, with a local community group that you have, or even with your family members. Cybersecurity is not just a business concern. Then you'll be able to see a bit more about the information. When you scroll down, you'll be able to see the key resources that are available to you in regards to that toolbox. So in each one, you'll be able to see the type, the level, and the time. If you want to understand what that means, just click on the About, and that will show you what the tool types are. So the toolkit is made up of a number of different types of tools. So we have instructions, we have policy documents, we have third-party scans, we have third-party tools, and we also have videos. So there are a number of ways in which you can learn about cybersecurity by using the toolkit. Then we have the time indicator in terms of the approximate time it'll take to implement the tool. And then we also have the tool levels. What you'll see in a lot of the tool levels, a lot of the tools, is that actually the levels are quite low. As I said before, you don't have to be a technical expert in cybersecurity in order to use this toolkit or in order to become cyber secure. And I think that will be really clear once you start looking at all of the different levels of the resources provided. And then if you do have any other questions about the toolkit, there's contact information as well to the Global Cyber Alliance, who have helped put this all together. Then less applicable to this section, but you can also filter to your operating system as well. So you can tailor the resources that you see based upon what you're using in your business or on your personal devices. What you'll then see when you go even further down is additional training and resources. So these are different in each of the toolboxes. So you'll have in most of the toolboxes a guide. This can be your starting point in your journey. So basically give an overview of the topic of the toolbox, why it's important, kind of demystify some of the terminology, again, ransomware, malware, what does this actually mean? That's all in the guidance for you as well. And again, this is something that you can print out and provide to your colleagues and to people within your business. There are also a number of templates that you can download and use as well. So that is how the toolbox works, and you'll see these in each of the separate sections within the toolbox. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to move out of the toolbox and into a presentation and walk you through each of the 6 steps that have been outlined. So while I go through this, you'll actually recognize a lot of the key topics that Sibs brought up earlier. This is because this is all about cyber hygiene, and this is about supporting you in becoming more. All right, let me open up the document. Bear with me. There we go. Amazing. All right, so the first step in the cybersecurity journey is about actually knowing what you have. You don't know what you need to protect and what risks are relevant to your business without first understanding what you have. And what we mean by what you have, we mean looking at what hardware you have, what software you have, looking at what accounts you have, so whether that's social media accounts or email accounts, and it's also understanding what data you're holding. So first, get an inventory of what you have, because this will then be the starting point for understanding where you're at risk and what those risks look like for your business. So in terms of the toolkit and how it supports you in this journey, we have, oh, it's not showing on the screen. Maybe I'll put it in. Technical difficulties, everyone. It's just not showing up on the screen. I think it's in presentation mode. If you go to this one. Yeah. Yeah, maybe if you go after presentation mode. Thanks for bearing with. Okay, perfect. It's showing now. This one. Yeah. Okay. Yep, it's showing on the screen. Then if I click next, wonderful. All right, thank you very much. Yeah. So big round of applause for the City team. Unfortunately, I know we're at a cybersecurity event, but my technological skills are somewhat limited in some areas. So as I was saying, knowing what you have is the first step. So how does the toolkit help you with this? So one of the first resources is the Know What You Have checklist. So you can open up the guidance in the toolkit, and this gives you a really good checklist to start with as a basis for understanding the sort of things, as I said, the software, the hardware, the accounts that you should be looking at as part of your cybersecurity inventory you can think of. The next one, there actually is an asset tracker that you can use to track all of these, and the template is in the toolkit. Sorry. So if you open that up, you can start populating that based upon the checklist that's in the toolkit. And then also another really useful tool is the Thing app. So this is a free tool that helps you monitor and discover all of the assets that are connected to your network. This is really useful not only for you understanding what you have, but also maybe identifying what shouldn't be there. Now, once you've identified what you have, it's all about understanding and identifying your risks. So you want to do a risk assessment and get together a risk assessment template. So if any of you were in our session on March 10th, so last week, we had Anna Collard who walked through the template that she used when she was an SME. We can share this further if anyone's interested in having it. But in terms of what you want in this template, you want to identify the risk and its nature. You want to identify the potential impact, the probability, and you want to identify what existing controls are in place, if any. This will help you identify which are your priority risks. In reality, there's so many risks that exist for your business, you're not going to be able to manage and get rid of all of them. So you really want to make sure that you're focusing on the ones that matter, the ones that are going to bring down your business, the ones that are going to put personal information at risk. These are the ones that you want to highlight, and you want to come up with a strategy in terms of how you're going to handle them. One of the resources that's really useful in the toolkit is that once you start managing these risks and putting the controls in place, there's a security scorecard, which basically lets you understand where you are in comparison to other businesses in terms of how you're managing your risks and the level of risk in your business. So it's not only useful for understanding where you are, but also where you are in comparison to a number of other businesses. The second one is about updating your defenses. So we talked a bit about making updates when they come up, but you can also think about doing auto updates. This is really helpful, right? You know, there's so many things on your plate when you're thinking about what you need to do as an SME. If there's one thing that you can take off your plate by automating it, actually automating those updates is a really good option. You should also be looking into what software you're using, you're no longer using, but is in your system, and thinking about getting rid of that. You should be looking at software that's no longer supported, so is no longer getting updates from the software developers or from the providers, and think about using a different software, because that means that you are vulnerable as a result. And also removing access to any old users. So making sure that the people who have access to your software or to your accounts are the right people, and that no one has access that shouldn't have access. So how does the toolkit support this? So in each of the different resources for the toolkit, you'll be able to see that there are a number of videos that you can watch and almost a training program that you can follow. So you'll see that under the what you'll learn. They have why software updates are critical, how delayed patching caused 4 billion in global damages, do security patches ever stop being made, etc. So this is a really good way to get yourself up to speed in terms of not only why patches are important, but how you implement these in your business. And then again, in terms of the actual resources based upon your system, there are a number of auto update resources that you can use to help you do that. The next one is about secure your accounts with strong passwords. I know we've said passwords, but we cannot say it enough. It's one of the easiest ways that cyber attackers can get into your systems is by guessing your passwords, by not having strong enough passwords in place, or by using the same password on all of your accounts. So once they have access to one, they have access to all of them. So we need to think about strong passwords. So what makes a strong password? Well, you think about, about 12 characters is good, so having a lot of characters, having a mix of upper and lower case, having a mix of letters and also of numbers, and also making sure it's not things like your name, your birth date, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that kind of thing as well, because these things are really easy to guess, and they can have very serious implications if someone gets through to your business. So this is not only something to think about for you, but also something, as Smes mentioned, to remind your colleagues about, and to make sure that there's a plan in place in terms of how people are going to set their passwords and how often they're going to update them. So there's a number of guidance online in terms of how often you update, but make sure that you're doing these updates regularly, but also not putting yourselves at risk of people updating their passwords so often that they're forgetting their passwords or reusing passwords, because you also don't want that. So I think that's some people recycle their passwords as they go through every time they need to do an update. You need to make sure that every time you're putting in a new password is genuinely a new password for your account. So how does the toolkit support this? So again, you'll be able to go through training that talks through what strong passwords look like and what you should have in your password if you want to secure your business. It then also has links to a number of the top password managers. So these can help you come up, in some instances, with strong passwords that are unique and, seem like a very random assortment of numbers and letters. It can also help you make sure that you have access and kind of remember, rather than writing down in a post-it note, as they've said, and putting it underneath your laptop, actually having your passwords in a secure place. And then there's also an authentication policy. This is really useful if you're building a business. Throughout the toolkit, there are a number of assets to help you write your policy and develop your policy across a number of cybersecurity topics, and this is one of them. And either will provide guidance, and in some cases, actually, you'll even have an example of a policy that you can use to develop the policy for your own business, or if you've been put in charge of developing the policy for someone else's business as well. All right, so the next one, we call it prevent harm from the inevitable. So we're talking about cybersecurity and cyber attacks. Obviously, it's very scary. And a lot of times we talk about this is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So it's making sure that actually you are ready for when an attack happens or when someone tries to make an attack on your systems. Now, this is not only about you as a business owner or an entrepreneur, but this is also making sure that your colleagues are also trained up to not make maybe potentially silly mistakes that have very, very serious repercussions for your business. So Sibs talked a lot about emails and the risk. One of the biggest risks is getting phishing emails or emails that come through that you think are from a colleague or are from a reputable business, such as Netflix, which is what Sib said. But actually what they're doing is they're emails from attackers with links that will ultimately compromise your systems. So it's about making sure that you have the protection in place, either something that does scanning of your emails, scanning of your systems so that these don't come through, but also doing training. So we talk about people not only as being a great asset to any business, but also potentially a great risk. So they need to have training on what it means to be cyber secure and how they can support the cybersecurity of your business. In terms of how the toolkit supports this, there are a number of videos with common phishing examples, for example, or how to detect a phishing email, or how to avoid ransomware. So these are really good videos, again, for yourself, or if you want to teach people within your business or within your community about phishing emails. This is a good place to start. It means that you don't have to create the video yourself. It's all there. There are also some trainings available in the toolkit that you can use, again, for yourself or to share with your community and the people within your business. So these are great ways to look through the key steps that you should take in order to make sure that everyone in your business is aware of cybersecurity and can play a role and is accountable to the security of the data that you have. So the next one is about being prepared in the event of an attack. So sometimes we're unlucky. Sometimes there is an attack and it does get through. So you need to make sure that you have a plan in the event that this happens. And so you need to think about having a backup and recovery plan in place. So the toolkit has a number of videos and guidance in terms of how to do this. It has a guidance pack that gives you an outline of what it actually means to back up your data and what recovery looks like for an SMME. Because sometimes when you look online, this can seem like a very expensive thing. You might think that you need special software or systems in place, but there are actually some basic things that you can do in order to do this. What is also really useful that the toolkit provides is something that's called No More Ransom. So No More Ransom is part of an initiative that has a number of resources to support businesses in the event that they are actually under attack. And what it actually has, one of the things that might be useful to you all, it has a decryption tool. So this supports small businesses to in terms of decrypting any ransomware attack that comes through. Not any. But it has a list of ones that it can support you with. So if you are under attack, this is something that you, or actually before you're even under attack, it might be useful to look through this list and understand where this toolkit might be able to support you. So I talked a bit before, and also our presenters previously talked about how cybersecurity isn't just a risk around business continuation or around kind of legislation concerns. It's also a reputational hazard. And this is not only once you're, being attacked yourself, but also people impersonating to be your business online. That can also have very serious implications for your business, because then your name, even though you have nothing to do with it, it's your name coming up in the news or in the complaints from people, and people might not realize that it's actually not potentially your email, your business email's address that's being used. So there are a couple of tools within the toolkit to support you with this. So there's DMARC, which helps stop attackers from using your company domain to defraud others. There's also a trademark tool. You can use this to basically monitor online and ensure your business name is not being misused on the internet to defraud customers. So this is really useful, because what you don't want happening is people setting up a whole web page with a fake email pretending to be your business, which is a reputable business, but actually using it to defraud people and get money from people. And I said, this is not something that you want, as a business, want to be associated with. So I've gone through all of the sections of the toolkit. There are the 6 steps. We talked through kind of some of the 3 key things or vulnerabilities that enable people to get through to your data. So we talked about system vulnerabilities and the need to set up patches and to do updates. We also talked about passwords, people understanding or learning or practicing or testing out different passwords and being able to get into your systems that way. And we also talked about people, so human error, and how that's also a very real way that people can get into your data. So I have a bit more time. So I know we have a panel coming up, but if anyone wants to ask any questions, then I'll actually take this opportunity to do it, and I can actually go into some of the resources within the toolkit as well.
I wanted to show the audience the video, if possible.
Oh, go ahead.
So I just want to, it's a really great video that I've just thought of. I saw it a while ago, and it really shows you about we all had a lot of laughter in the room when we said don't use free Wi-Fi. And it's really important that you don't. And I'm going to show you a video which will show you why you shouldn't.
So for all of you in the room, you'll be able to hear this video. For those on the live stream, you might not be able to. So apologies as we play this video, but hopefully we'll share the link later so you can go take a look at it as well in your own time. And if you do have any questions, please do raise your hand in a bit.
I'll just get the link up from my phone. And I think this is good to lead us into the next session on POPIA and your personal information. Let me just, maybe I'll go into YouTube will be easier. Because if you're anything like me, when I get into an airport, coffee shop, like, yeah, I want to use free Wi-Fi. What's the name? What was the name? Alex. There you go, Johnny. Give you free battery and get a free. So you can just see from that, and that's someone doing it to help you. Imagine what that information in the hands of criminals, how valuable that is. And that's tiny, tiny pieces of information, little breadcrumbs. So you wouldn't advertise knowingly where you live because people might burgle your house. Don't do it on Facebook. Please don't do it. If you must do it, please use a VPN. All right, thank you, Shelby.
Thanks, Vicky. Great. Before I move on to our Popia section that will be presented by Judith from KPMG, are there any questions in regards to the toolkit and how people can use it, or how you can access the toolkit for yourself or for training others? Very quiet. All right. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to find me, for those of you who are in the event afterwards during the networking session. For any of you who are on the live stream, please do feel free to contact City or to contact KPMG. We'll make sure that those contact details are available to you as well. And we're happy to answer any questions. We're doing a number of additional training sessions on the toolkit, so we can share the dates of those sessions as well. If you do want to come to another one to learn a bit more, or if you want to share that invite to other people who you work with or who you live with, even all of this is relevant even for your personal data as well. So I'll get started with Judith. So Judith is going to come up and teach us a bit about Popia and why it's relevant to you. So let me get that up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Judith Masekwameng, and I'm an Associate Director at KPMG within the Risk Advisory Service offering. And this morning, I'm going to talk to you about or share some insights with regards to the POPI Act. And just to bring it a bit closer to home, we've already heard from Sibs and Shelby in terms of what are the different ways that you can protect yourself or protect your environment as well. But just to bring it a bit closer to home, how many of you actually looked at the attendance register outside and signed and actually gave it some thought in terms of what information is being collected, how is that information going to be used, and did you actually bother to ask what is that information going to be used or how it's going to be used? So that's POPI, actually. So POPI is about what data is collected about you, how that information is going to be used, or for what it's going to be used, how it's going to be stored, and how it's going to be destroyed at the end of the day as well. So POPI is not something as complex as we all might think it is. It's really simple things that we take for granted. Another practical example, I had a colleague asking me for a cell phone number for a client. I have the cell phone number because I'm performing work for them, but that colleague doesn't actually have consent to get that cell phone number. So we actually had to go back to the client and ask them, are you comfortable with me sharing your cell phone number to my colleague? That's consent. So all of those things that you do on a day-to-day basis that you take for granted, willingly sharing information without asking the other person for consent is against POPI, right? So then if I can just move over to the slide. So what is POPI? I'm sure you've heard of it. Does anyone want to take a chance and be brave enough to say what it is? Even though it is written up there. I see the eyes scanning quickly. All right, so essentially what it is really about regulating the manner in which information is collected, how that information is collected, the purpose for collecting that information and making sure that there is adequate security to protect that information as well. So the onus is on you as the responsible party to make sure that all the information that you have at your disposal, it is secure, and the reasons for having that information is also lawful as well, right? And just in terms of the difference between PAPIA and PAIA, which is Promotion of Access to Information Act. And PAIA really talks about accessing information that is available and held by public and private entities, and PAPIA is about then how that information is collected and protected. And both those two pieces of regulation are being controlled by the information regulator. And in essence, they're all about protecting information and what information you have access to as well. Okay. All right, then the next question is, how are you impacted? Are you impacted as an SME with PAPIA? So if I can get a sense of someone who is willing to explain what they do, what their business is about, and then we can just talk to that example and see how you're impacted by PAPIA. Anyone? Yes. Hi. Thanks, Sibs.
Hi, Judith. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Mpo.
Mpo. Nice to meet you, Mpo.
I'm known as Kostingo. I run a African traditional medicine chemist.
Okay.
So I do it online.
Yes.
So there's an online store.
All right.
So with that, people then order from the store, then we deliver. So it has never been so convenient to get African traditional medicine like that.
Yeah, hey. Straight at your door in 24 hours.
Yes, it's overnight, you get it, you order today, you pay, tomorrow we deliver.
Okay.
So that's the convenience of technology.
Absolutely.
I think it's just bringing a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And for us to get into cybersecurity, it's one of the things that raised my head.
Yeah.
So I collect information just not only from ordering, but obviously you need addresses.
Yeah.
I need personal names,
Yeah.
cell phones,
Yeah.
and email addresses.
Yeah.
And you have to provide invoices for obviously for the business side of it.
Of course.
And I'll tell you one thing, it's a challenge, because in this industry of ours, only a name was important, but not an address. But I understand why someone will say, when you ask for their email, then they'll be like, oh, but ngisenyangeni, or it's just a traditional healer, why do you need my email address?
Absolutely.
But because we've moved to digital, so everything, it's out there, and we need that information. So that's a typical story of me and people's information, not just only as a doctor, but also just this, like you're saying, this personal information is so important, and we took it lightly. I remember last week I was on the online webinar, and I was like, no,
great.
I'll have to go in person for this one.
Oh, wow.
And I think you came in after about an hour, about hour minutes, and I'm like, you know what, KPMG is bringing something, and British High Commissioner, I have to attend this one in person, because one thing about our people is that we're dealing with mental health. Mental health is the biggest issue. So cybersecurity can be a protection. That's why I said, after I started attending the cybersecurity with British and Women Hub, I said I'll be an ambassador of cybersecurity.
Yay.
Because then, if so, it means that this will help reduce the level of mental illnesses we're having. Already we're dealing with so much that we cannot see, but at least that we can see or have control over. So I'm like, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Thank you,
I hope you got
I did. You actually gave me a lot of information that I can use. And thank you so much, really, for your support, joining, and actually providing yourself, getting the information that you need to protect your business and to protect the customers that you serve as well, right? One question. So in terms of once a customer has ordered, how do they make payment?
Okay, so we've got easy payment options, but so we use these payment integration systems.
Is it online?
Pay fast.
Okay, pay fast.
Got
Okay.
your iCockers. But remember, we're dealing with people that still need to understand this whole new world of
Yeah.
digital. It's still not easy for one to provide their credit card or
Bank
debit details.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the challenges, because someone will ask, is it safe? And even me, when I sleep at night, I'm asking, is someone maybe not overtaking our website?
Yeah.
Is someone maybe not overtaking my email? Maybe I'm not getting an email today. What's happening? You know, those concerns. And I think for me, providing health, one of those, security should be one of the major things we look at.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mpo. All right, so based on the information that you've shared, you use a lot of personal information, right? You also have a website that is used as well to get all of this information. So physical address for the delivery, the name, phone number, email, and then of course then there's an additional layer in terms of then the security that you need to provide on your website, because their banking details are then being captured. So that's a lot of information. And where, in terms of that information that is stored then, they go onto your website, you have consent, they actually willingly then give the information so that they can do the ordering, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about the website that you brought up, cybersecurity, right? Everyone can be hit by a cyber attack. It's not just large organizations like what's been listed here on the screen, but small enterprises like yourself can be also cyber attacked. Yes. And therefore it's imperative that you have controls in place to protect your website so that you do not have, or rather so that you're not vulnerable to a cyber attack. And Sibs and Shelby have already given some pointers in terms of what you need to do as a business owner then to protect yourself, and not only protecting yourself as a business, but also protecting the information that you hold on your website.
True.
Okay.
I think attending these webinars, they give you that, they're an eye opener.
Yeah.
Because I remember I even spoke to one of my mentors in cybersecurity, and I said, and I said to her, you know, obviously we're small businesses, so we online use this commerce site. We've got now Facebook having that commerce site. But for me, I said to her, I don't feel safe. And this is one of the things that I said, I want to improve. And if a person can get help to make sure that like security is galore, safe from your hardware, from your software, from anything, I'll just go through that and do anything to get that. And like you say, website is one of my major things that, yeah.
To drive your business,
Yes.
Understood. Because technology is really the way everyone is going right now. Very few people actually still use a physical order book. But even if they do, that order book also, according to Popia, needs to be protected. You can't leave it lying around for someone to come in and get that information, you know, leaving it open maybe on your counter for someone to come in and actually then steal that information, because it's as easy as that. And I mean, we saw from the video that Vicky showed us in terms of how easy it is. You know, I mean, social platforms, so much information is shared on social platforms, and more than you actually need to. But for some reason, you know, there's the functionality to check in, to say where you're at. I mean, is it really necessary from a security perspective? You know, and I suppose it's because that's what everyone else is doing, but you don't think about the consequences of sharing such information. So based on the giving us a view of your business, we've already understood what personal information is and what information is applicable. ID number, physical address, banking details, phone number, emails, that is all classified as personal information. And personal information that can be used for fraudulent purposes, and therefore it's imperative that is protected, and hence really the basis for the Popia Act as well. Okay, so there's 8 basic Popia principles that form the foundation in terms of what, as a business owner, is expected of you, or certain things that you need to comply with. So I'm not a legal expert. I'm more, so I will talk to all 8 of them, give you a brief overview in terms of what they actually mean. And since this is a cybersecurity workshop, then delve a bit more in terms of Principle 7, which talks to the security safeguards and what that means and what is actually expected of you. Okay. So the first one is in terms of accountability. So that says there has to be someone responsible for the information that is collected. So someone in your organization has to be familiarized themselves with what the POPI Act actually says in terms of what is your responsibility as a business owner. That's the first principle. And usually that is done through an appointment of an information officer. But I mean, for an organization, small organization, that could be you as the business owner. And it'd be actually good for you as a business owner to be clued up in terms of what information you have and how you're actually going to go about protecting it. The second principle talks about process limitation. So you only process information that you need. You don't need to collect more information that you need. And that the reason for collecting that information there has to be a purpose for why you're collecting that information as well. The third principle, purpose specific. And I actually went into that a bit to say there has to be a purpose which is lawful for why you're collecting that information. The fourth principle, further processing limitation. And that essentially says that you cannot now use the information that you have for any other reason than the original objective which you collected it for. As an example that I made about a colleague asking for a phone number, there was a reason why I have that phone number. Now, further processing limitation says I cannot use that information for any other reasons than why I collected it, right? Information quality, this talks about the data that you have has to be complete, has to be accurate, and any changes that you make needs to be aligned, and the data subject, as they are called, which is the person that that information belongs to, has to know and has to be able to view that data as well. Openness talks about how you use that information. So you have to be open. If I come to you, Mpo, and I say, what information do you have of mine? How are you using it? Who else has access to it? Because the other thing that comes into play is that some of you may have third parties that you engage with, and you have to share that information with a third party. Now, I have to be able to know and have comfort of who's got my information, the reason that they have it, and that if there's a third party involved, that information is kept secure as well. The 6 security safeguards, and as I said, I'm going to delve a bit deeper in terms of what is expected from that, because that talks to some of the cyber security aspects of it, and essentially talks about what controls do you have in your environment to protect that information that you have. And data subject participation says that as a consumer, I have a right to come to you, request to have a record of all the information that you have at your disposal, be able to request that you modify any of the information, and actually also request that you delete it, should I find that I do not want to have any services with you again. Okay. All right. Principle 7, security safeguards principles. So there's 2 aspects here that talk to this principle. One is security for privacy, and the other one is incident management. Security for privacy. Going back to Impo's website, she has to make sure that her website is adequately protected. To make sure that all the software, all the antivirus software is applied, is updated when it needs to. Make sure that, for instance, anyone who logs onto your website, there's a username and there's a password that is implemented. And the fact that for instance, if someone uses the incorrect password, their account is logged out as well. So it talks about how do you protect the information that you're holding in your environment? You have to know where that information is stored, and then you have to make sure that where that information is stored, there's adequate controls to protect that information as well. The second aspect is around incident management. Now, should you be cyber attacked, for instance, if there's a data breach and that personal information, someone actually has access to it, you have to know what you need to do in such an instance. POPIA requires that first you have to inform the information regulator, and then secondly, you also have to inform us as your customers that there was a data breach, what information was also accessed, and what it is that you're going to do to rectify the issue. And the incident management process as well, it's about how as well how you need to recover or what you need to do. You have to understand what the incident was, understand the root cause of the incident, and how you're going to fix it, or what controls are you going to fix. If it was because of a weak password, then as an example, you're going to strengthen your password settings, right? As a simple example. Are there any questions with regards to these two items? Okay. Some practical tips. This is not an exhaustive list, obviously. This is just really a few items, and I think seeing that you've been here the whole morning as well, having listened to Sibs and Shelby as well, you get a sense in terms of what is the expectation from you as a business owner to make sure that you protect this information. So, firstly, you have to understand what information you're holding in your environment. You can't protect what you don't know. So if you find that you do an assessment of the information that's in your environment, and all of it is actually noted as applicable from a POPIA perspective, then you need to do the necessary to protect that information as well. And that's, in essence, POPIA is about that, making sure that there is accountability when protecting information. Appoint an information officer, and like I said, this is something that you can take on as a business owner, and it's about understanding what is expected, what POPIA requires that you comply with, and how you need to go about doing that as well. Third parties, know what information that you share with third parties. If you have someone that does deliveries for you, for instance, you have to share the address of the customer with that third party. So you have to know how they're protecting that information, that it's not just going to be some papers lying around for someone else to get access to. So you have the right as the business owner to check with your third party to make sure that they also have the necessary controls in place to protect customer information as well. And then the people that you work with, make them aware of what POPIA is, what is the impact of POPIA, and also not just about POPIA as well, but how to protect your environment as well. Using the tips from Shelby and Sibs as well in terms of password management, security updates, and all of that. Make your staff aware of what is their responsibility, because their responsibility does not just lie with you as the owner, it lies with everyone else within your environment, because that one person could be a weakest link to you getting a cyber attack. And then, of course, drafting a notification procedure. This is in case there's a breach. Then how are you going? You have to have a clear understanding of how you're going to manage that breach and how you're going to then notify the information regulator as well as your customers as well. Then the last slide is really just some assets, and I'm not going to go into detail. Shelby has done a great job of that already in terms of what is available as a starting point. How do I know what I need to comply with? So there's a checklist that you can use to help you. There's a breach notification template that you can use. So there's a whole lot of assets that you can use that is at your disposal with the data protection toolkit that you can use, and then unpack further and see how you're impacted and how you can protect your business as well. That's it. Any questions? Oh, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. We're actually going to answer any questions that you have for Judith around POPIA or any cybersecurity questions you have off of the back of the sessions that you've heard today through our panel that we're going to have with all of the great people who've presented today. So we're going to take a moment to all get set up, and then we'll get through that panel. So those of you in the room, if you raise your hand so we know that you have a question. For those of you on... question. And then for those of you on the live stream, Sibs, my colleague, is looking through the questions that are coming through, so she'll read out any questions for us as well. I'm going to start off with some questions that we've pre-developed to give you a bit of thinking time as well, so that you're ready when we open it up to all of you who are here today. So we're going to take a minute to get everything set up so our panelists can join us up here. Great, we're back after that little interval. We have Diane back with us, so thank you. We have Vicky back with us, and we have Judith back with us. And then we have Marcelo here from KPMG, so I'll give him a chance to introduce himself before we get started with our panel questions.
Okay, can everybody hear me? That's perfect, yeah. So I guess it's still morning, so morning everybody, morning those online. As Shelby said, my name is Marcelo Vieira, I'm a partner in KPMG South Africa. And I guess I've got the privilege of heading up cybersecurity for KPMG South Africa. Now, I don't look after KPMG South Africa's security posture, but I do advise and work with clients on their cybersecurity posture, their strength, their hygiene. So a lot of what's been discussed today is obviously something that we do on a day-to-day basis, and it's a very exciting world, as one can imagine, right? So I'm really glad to be here and engaging with you guys today.
Great, so take advantage of this opportunity to ask Marcelo some questions for free. So as I said, I'll start off with a couple of questions, and then I'll open it up to everyone in the room and everyone on the live stream. I do want to say, I know you probably all heard it from other things, there are no stupid questions. You know, we're going back to basics when it comes to cybersecurity in this session. We're not expecting you to be technical experts. So any question that you have for us, we'll receive it and we'll take the time to answer it. And as I said, for everyone on the live stream, please do, we're involving you. So put through your questions, and Sibs will be sharing some of those in the session as well. So my first question is, we're all here, we're all trying to learn about cybersecurity, and it can be a really overwhelming task for SMEs who are new to this world. And I just wanted to ask yourself, Vicky, kind of what's a good starting point, and what should SMEs start thinking about as they enter this journey?
Thanks, Shelby. I think for me, the first thing is that overwhelming feeling can be really quite dominant, and it can really make you quite anxious. And it's a little bit like when you're at school and you know you have some homework to do, and you sit and you procrastinate and you think, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. Don't do that. Just start, and you can start anywhere, but don't put it off till later, because the longer you put it off, the more opportunity there is for something to go wrong, right? And really, really kind of destroy your reputation or destroy your business. So really, I would just start, go on this website, find the toolkit, click on the first link and just work your way through it slowly. I'm someone who absolutely loves to tick things off of a to-do list. That's why there's a checklist there. Start ticking it off, pat yourself on the back, and then you can take a break and have a cup of tea and whatever. But don't delay thinking it's never going to happen to me. I'm going to hide in an ocean of information that's out there. I think one of the things I really want to kind of get across to everybody is that whilst we all lack time and resources and that sort of things, criminals don't. They have all of the time in the world. This is their one job. And they have a sea of people to choose from. So for all of the kind of automated attacks out there, they just need one person. So whilst that feels really scary, starting actually makes you feel better about it, can make you feel less anxious because you're actually taking steps forward. You're starting to work through this toolkit. You're starting to understand how many devices do we all use in the company? How many devices do I personally use? When I started doing this, when I started my cyber journey sort of many years ago, I was shocked about actually how many accounts do I have all over the place. I mean, you just look in your email account and you're like, how many things have I signed up to and I'm getting emails from? And it's because we talk about Poppy and, you know, by collecting consent, they're also asking you to tick. Would you like to hear about other news? How often do you just not think about it and you click? And then that increases your chances of having a spam email or a phishing email that looks really like that service. I'm always really shocked. I stay in Airbnbs quite a lot and you have these smart TVs. How many times do you click on the Netflix and somebody else's account is already logged in? It's very easy for you then to just go on settings. You could potentially find out someone's email address. And with that email address, again, you know, we've seen it, we know about it now. So I would say start with the toolkit, log on, familiarize yourselves, download the checklist, and just start slowly, every so often working your way through it. That first one about knowing your devices, it takes 4 hours. You're thinking, it takes 4 hours, it's so much time, but that is much better as opposed to what the implications are, which is you could potentially no longer have a business. Yes, that sounds scary, but that is the reality. And I'd rather spend 4 hours slowly working through it than actually all of the time and effort you've spent setting up a business or setting up the services that you want to provide can just be destroyed. So that's where I would start. Start with the toolkit.
Thanks, Vicky. And then I want to ask a follow-up question to Marcelo or to Diane. In terms of what are the basic controls that you would expect SMEs to set up, and what do you think they should prioritize as they start their cybersecurity journey? So whoever makes eye contact.
Ladies first. Come on. Yes. What controls is dependent on how much time and effort and resource and budget you're prepared to put into it. So I would start simple. I alluded to it earlier, and to follow on from the previous comment, know what you need to protect. You can't protect something you don't know. So understand that. And then know who has access to it. And if you can just start small and say, do I know who has access to it? And can I limit that access to only what is necessary? Remember, least privilege, always. If somebody is the cleaner, they don't need access to Mpo's client database. It's not essential. So limited, least privilege is where I would start.
No, there's all good points. Thanks, Diane, for taking my... But I guess if we have to just, before I give my views on, I guess, what are some of the basic controls or the bare minimums, I guess, is the question that's been posed. I think, you know, we're talking a lot about the digital age, and I think digital trust is actually a concept that many organizations and even, you know, the large corporates are grappling with. And I think in your case, as SMMEs, I think it's even more important, right? Because let's take, for instance, your store gets hacked, you know, you've got a very small population, very small user base. That user base is going to get uneasy with doing business with an SMME that can't even protect a basic website, right? So digital trust, I think, for small organizations, I think is even not that it's not important for larger organizations, but even more important for the owner-managed businesses, the small organizations that's trying to just start up. So I think fundamentally the things that we're discussing today are so important, right? And your point about the Netflix account, I've seen that so many times. Wi-Fi, I mean, the points where we've discussed today, I've been doing this for 15 years. I used to talk about the Wi-Fi thing almost 10 years ago. Still today we're talking about the Wi-Fi risk, right? I mean, and we're all guilty, right? Even entrepreneurs, we sit in hotels today. You know, I'm from Pretoria, I'm not from Cape Town. I connect to the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi at the hotel. Now, how many people's on that Wi-Fi? Do we know what they're doing on the Wi-Fi? It's fundamentally VPNing. I mean, I think it's if you watch any YouTuber nowadays, they're all promoting VPN solutions. VPN's important, you know. If you're going to be on a public Wi-Fi, make sure you protect that information. Make sure you protect that asset of yours, which has got personal information, trade secrets, recipes, whatever you're selling is on that device of yours. So just to get back, toolkit. It's a great toolkit. I think the team have done a fantastic job in developing a nice balance of some privacy principles and nice templates that can be used from a peer perspective, but also some stuff around cyber hygiene. But over and above that, I think there's also a nice standard or a nice reference sort of manual called the CIS Top 20 Critical Security Controls. Now, most organizations, I'm sure Diane has seen it. I mean, a lot of the corporates we deal with, and actually still today, use that as their base to inform what should I be doing, right, and where should I be focusing my energies on. Now, it's free, it's available online, go Google it, CIS Top 20 Security Controls. As SMMEs, there's some basic principles in there that you can also apply. The principle of know what you need to protect, right? And maybe my last parting point is, just make sure you harden your devices, your computers, right? I mean, exactly. Well, first harden. First harden. I mean, it's a basic term we use. But even in your, think about it in your home, you all got home Wi-Fi routers. How many of you have actually changed the password on that router? So in your business, don't just leave the standard admin and password settings on the router, because that's what the hackers are going to go for. Right? So in your business, whatever devices you're using to manage your infrastructure, harden it. Right, and then make sure you patch. Right, that's the important part. So that's what I'd say from an SMME perspective, an owner-managed business. Really just focus on thinking, well, how secure is these devices? Do I need to apply? And you're always going to have a friend somewhere that's going to be able to give you. I mean, I know it's daunting, but there is so much content. I mean, we live in, this is the millennials, the what generation? The Gen Z generation. Sorry, I can show my age now, but. YouTube's your friend, right? There is so much content out there on YouTube, right? That can actually, demystifies. It really demystifies a lot of the concepts we talk to our clients about. Google. So that's my 2 cents.
I just want to pick up something that Marcelo said, saying we're all guilty. It's absolutely true. So I think one of the things that you can take away in terms of kind of cybersecurity culture or mindset is not to beat yourself up about this. Like, we're all guilty of doing the wrong things. And it's about trying as hard as you can not to do the wrong things, just to remind yourself and continually remind yourself, your employees as well who might work for you. You can't, if someone clicks on a phishing link but has no idea of the risk, you can't really blame that person. For instance, those routers and those passwords, there are websites that just list them. So, there is information out there so that people can use against you. So don't beat yourselves up about it. Just try and do something about it. Kind of every day, just try and change your culture, try and change your mindset about your behavior online and how you work and live and play online.
Amazing. Thank you for your responses. Hopefully that's given everyone a bit of time to think about their questions for the panel as well. So I'll open it up to people in the room. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll bring a mic over to you. Great.
Hi. Sorry for that. This is a question from YouTube. Someone says, how are cybersecurity companies handling the ever-changing threats? Do they only react to threats, or are they actively trying to breach their own security systems in the effort to get ahead of the threat? Diane or myself?
I was going to say,
Okay, cool.
So in our organization, before we implement anything into production, so before anybody has access to the new version of our banking app, for example, we test it. So we have a group of penetration testers whose sole job it is to try and break into our systems so that we can proactively fix them.
And if I guess I could add, I mean, as I mentioned, this is what we do on a day-to-day basis. So just like Diane mentions, we do this for a lot of organizations, and generally the large organizations, especially let's call it the financial services space, the banking, they would be doing a lot of testing before they put any application, any website, anything into public domain. There would be a plethora of tests being done before that gets into production. And even while it's in production, it continuously goes through testing, right? So either through ethical hackers. Another service we do quite a lot of on the defense side, most organizations or the large organizations would be doing what's called red teaming, purple teaming type exercises where they mimic attacks, right? So red teaming, you pretty much give carte blanche to these ethical hackers to go and get as far as possible within the organization through different attack vectors, right? So it could be physical, it could be through the internet, it could be through social engineering, phishing campaigns, any of those forms. So most of the regulated sectors would be doing a lot of that. Obviously, the banking sector is highly regulated, so they spend a lot of time. And again, as the threat is emerging, I think a lot of the other industries are waking up to the fact that these are things they have to do. But it's obviously it's all like true consultant. It all depends on the size of your organization. Who, as I spoke about crown jewels, Diane spoke about crown jewels this morning. Crown jewels is a term we use in the industry around knowing your assets and knowing your key assets. So you have to look at that crown jewel assessment, understand what's important to your business, and then make sure you're protecting that appropriately, understanding who would be interested in that. So yes, to answer the YouTube question, there's a lot that the industry does and continues doing. Even public sector, I think there's a lot of standards in the public sector that are enforcing this. The central bank is consistently coming up with new standards, enhancing the maturity for organizations to ensure they're protecting your information and securing, those assets.
Just to follow on from that, and the reason why I'm so passionate about patching and patch management is that the large organizations like Microsoft are on an ongoing basis testing their environment and identifying vulnerabilities. They release patches every month. If you do not patch, you are vulnerable. You are just putting a signboard above your IT environment saying, come and hack me. So yeah, it is something that I cannot stress enough. It's a simple thing to do, auto-update and patch, and that's, as soon as a hacker finds a vulnerability, they give organizations a chance to patch. They're very nice sometimes, to mitigate those vulnerabilities, and it is critical that you apply those patches as soon as possible.
Oh, there's another question. Great. So our hand, Sibs, will come up, and we have a question in the room, so everyone on the live stream. Bear in mind. All right.
Thank you. Hi. My name is Sharon, and this question is for Vicky. I work with Vicky, that's why they are laughing. We both work. But I've been asked to ask what the toolkit is doing, or if there is any other support that is being given to law enforcement to support SMMEs that have actually been attacked, or how SMMEs can go about and, have confidence in the fact that law enforcement is capacitated and are able to support this initiative of being cyber secure. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Yes, I was chuckling because Sharon works with me, so of course she was going to ask me a question. As some of you might be aware, there was the new Cybercrime Act that passed through Parliament when was it enacted? 2020. I'm forgetting my years now. So SAPS or South African Police Service now have a responsibility that's kind of formally sort of legislated for to investigate cyber crimes and cyber criminals. So one of the things that the British High Commission is doing is running lots of training sessions with both the DPCI, which you will all know as the Hawks, but also the broader SAP, so that they understand this new legislation, what their responsibilities are, what types of offences there are now under the new Cybercrime Act. So we're doing a lot of training with them to build up that kind of broad understanding, but we're also training up the SAPs to be able to train themselves. One of the really difficult things around the world for law enforcement is really understanding this kind of environment, understanding what cybercrime really is. And so the UK is quite far down its journey. So we want to, as part of our kind of capacity building offer, is to share what we've learned over the last 20, 30 years, because as many of my colleagues will tell you, in the UK, we made a lot of mistakes. And actually, it's in a way, it's the best way to learn, but obviously that was very painful for the UK. So we want to share the knowledge that we've built up over the last 10, 20, 30 years and share that with law enforcement here in South Africa so that they can learn from that, not make those mistakes, and make it a much more difficult environment for cyber criminals to operate in. South Africa is it's really high up in terms of statistics for where cyber criminal activity generates from, but also I think in Africa it's the #1 place for victims as well. So it's both it's cybercrime is kind of being pushed out of here, but it's also a #1 kind of target as well. So the SAPs have their work cut out for them, but hopefully these training initiatives that we are doing with them will help in that fight and get everybody a bit more safe online and knowing where they can seek justice from and have crimes investigated properly and thoroughly, kind of in accordance with the law.
I've been put on mute. I think we had another, thank you, Vicky. I think we had another question over in the room. Did you still have your question? All right, we'll have the mic brought to you.
And there's one here too.
Okay, I think we have so many questions. We'll come to maybe in the far left first, just 'cause the hand went up first. We'll play it fair. And then we'll get to everyone else who had their hand up as well, so don't worry. And those of you on the live stream will also be paying attention to you. I'm happy that you have so many questions and are taking advantage of this panel.
Hi guys, I'm Asipe. So my question is for Diana. So I just wanted to ask if are you the cyber manager of all the branches here in South Africa for Capitec? And my second question is, how come that Capitec is, I'm not going to say only, but mostly the attacked bank when it comes to hackers taking or hacking the customers' money? Yeah.
There we go. The head of cyber for the whole of Capitec, so the branches don't have their own. We all work together and protect things as one unit. I wouldn't say that Capitec's the most hacked bank. In fact, yeah, I don't have much to support that. But all the financial services institutions, I think, are fair game, and they're easy targets if somebody wants to steal money. So yeah, I can't justify an answer to support that.
There's another question.
Afternoon. I wanted to ask to the panel, Okay, maybe each one of you can answer the question. Okay, what are some of the challenges that you have faced regarding cyberbullying, and how did you deal with them?
Maybe I'll just give it a go. So I've never personally experienced cyberbullying online. But I think from when I talk to law enforcement colleagues, I think one of the things that's really worrying now is that when you think about child sexual offenses in the real world, a child has to come into contact with a physical person often. Now that everybody has smartphones or can access the internet, that sort of ability to interact with young people has exponentially increased. So a pedophile sat in the Philippines, for example, can talk to somebody here in South Africa. So unless parents, education systems are talking actively to their children, or even people in your communities that are young, about how to protect themselves online. So who is this stranger potentially that you're talking to? Oh, they say that they are someone of a similar age, a similar background, and you have things in common. How do you really know who the person is sat at the end of that account? You can make up all kinds of fake profiles. So I think in terms of cyberbullying, it's everybody's responsibility to improve their awareness of things like that that's going on, child sexual offenses that are perpetrated online. Excuse me. So really, I'd say it's just worrying. The internet is a fabulous tool. You can do business. You can interact with people from all around the world. But as we've said, there is a lot of threat and risk that goes with that. But if you inform yourself, if you take your responsibility to help inform others, then you're doing a really good job to make sure that that place online is a safe space for everybody, and that people aren't taken advantage of. That's what I would say about cyberbullying. Anybody else want to join in? Judith.
Okay. My example is really close to home. It's cyberbullying that was experienced at my daughter's school. So as you know, these kids nowadays, they all have phones that they take to school. There's WhatsApp groups that are created amongst each other, and there's all sorts of things that are said on those WhatsApp groups. And we found a situation where actually there was quite a bit of cyberbullying that was happening. And obviously these kids were impacted, and to a point where it impacted their performance at school as well, and some as far as not wanting to come to school anymore. And as Vicky said, it's something that affects all of us, and we all have to take responsibility in terms of how we deal with it. So as parents, we had to make sure that, well, for me, let's say, for my daughter, I had to make sure she understands what cyberbullying is. What is the implication of cyberbullying? How do you identify when you're being cyberbullied, and what it is that you need to do as well? Because kids have a tendency to keep quiet about these things and suffer in silence as well. And then from the school's perspective, the teachers also had to give an awareness to all the students and put policies in place in terms of how cell phones need to be dealt with, how which kids can bring cell phones to school, and at what hours during the school those phones can be used as well. Thanks.
I think just very quickly before, I think Marcelo maybe wants to speak. But in terms of understanding what cyberbullying is, I think it's really important for everybody online to check their own behavior and not cyberbully themselves. It's really easy now on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, to have an opinion about what some people are doing online. And I think before you hit post, just check and think, would I like to be on the receiving end of that message? And actually just kind of take that principle of being kind online, like you would you, if you won't say it to somebody's face, why would you hide online and say it? And we can all check our own behavior, because it's very easy to just cast away. comments like that. But if you wouldn't feel comfortable in person, don't do it online.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Vicky. I think, and that's the reality, right? I think if you wouldn't be brave to make a comment or react that way physically, then don't do it online. I think the reality is the world we're living in nowadays. It's it's so easy to go onto social media or through WhatsApp groups to bully. It's a great question. I think everybody's it's something that the world is grappling with. But it does start at home. It starts with the values that gets created at home, in your work environments. In large organizations, we all subscribe to corporate values, and it's important that we live those values, right? In every action, whether it's physical or online. But what I do want to add, I mean, it's a great question, because we do focus quite a bit of it. I mean, October is normally considered Cyber Month, as an example. And we spend quite a bit of time in October educating schools around principles of cyber hygiene, but more importantly, actually, we talk about cyberbullying as well. And maybe my last point, and there's a great platform, a proudly South African platform that actually started with the Cyber Hub of Dr. Kira Pillay. It's called Lunga. It's a Lumka platform. We'll share the link afterwards, but it's a great platform that provides good content around cyberbullying. And in actual fact, it's got a capability to report potential cyberbullying, and then they support you through that process. So, great question. For me, it starts with values in the day, right? And that's what's important to instill in everybody.
And then my excellent assistant has just reminded me, but also Marcelo mentioning the Lumka platform. There's also a cybersecurity toolkit for school-age learners that we developed. I think it was back in 2020 in consultation with the Cybersecurity Hub, and it's on their website, and it touches upon cyberbullying in schools. So there's loads and loads of materials there that schools can use, or anyone wanting to talk to young people about cyberbullying. There's loads of material there. So a bit like the toolkit for small businesses, there's also a toolkit for kind of school-age learners as well.
Fab. Thanks everyone for your responses, and thank you for such a great question to the panel. We're coming to the end of time, so I'm going to take one more question. I know you've been waiting patiently, so I'm going to let you.
Good day, people. My name is Pamela Scarp. I've got this problem that is happening right now. I'm running an organization called Sizamile Youth Development Project. A managing director does not even earn nothing, but I'm doing for the community. I even open the one that's can make a business, private company, I open another one. But now there's this thing that is bothering me, because I'm not too much on this Facebook thing or this social something. But when I need something, I can go there. But the thing is, I went to see something that I don't see no funding on my project. But I said I called Radios Bonelli, my other community radio there, to search for me, hawkers or police. They must search who's eating in this project, because I sense that. So I hear that there's some people who are eating on my project. They open another account. My own is 00, but we're always reporting to SARS or social development. And this thing is happening between social development and these people that they are eating on our poor organizations. So the other time I went to the social development Kailicha, it happens to say that the woman said, Pam, they have arrested 12 people on what they are eating on a project. But now I don't know what must I do after they have arrested 12 people. Oh, I don't have lawyers. I don't have nothing. I don't have money to even to do this website. They used to come to me, but I want to know how to fill that thing. So who can help me? Because now, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg or Google or what, they can help and search, because sometimes it's not right. People who are going to benefit on something, for suppose the community who have been doing this thing for 20 years or 22 now. Sometimes you see somebody on a photo, you don't even know this person. Does he put his photo in your own to something that is, if you are involved with, but you don't know what to do after that, because when you go to police, they will say, Sisi, we don't know that, if you don't know that person, so who's going to help me on this behalf of this thing? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my answer is going to be the one that I guess you've already touched on, which is the right thing is to go to the police, right? I guess if you're not getting joy with that particular station, then you need to find a station that actually understands the problem, right? Because Vicky touched on it earlier. I mean, there is the cybercrimes unit within the South African police force, right, which is meant to deal with these type of situations. And I think the reality is, I mean, capacity is a big issue within the police, and not all the police stations have generally the understanding of who to report this to. So it's about finding the right person within the police that knows where to report this through, which then gets through to the cybercrimes unit within the police force, and they will take on this case. The other option, I guess, if I'm thinking off the bat, yeah, is, I mean, we've alluded to the Cybersecurity Hub, which is run out of the CSR and Department of Communications and Digital Technology. There's again, we'll share the link on there. There's also a platform to report cyber incidents, cybersecurity incidents, specifically in the public domain and for private citizens. So there's that element to report on there, and where they can provide you with support. That's the only two things I can think of off the cuff that I think you can do. I mean, you can't go at this alone. Unfortunately, you don't have the resources for it, right? So you're going to have to find somebody within the police that can support. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else wants to add.
I think try Kraaifontein Police Station. They have a cyber inspector there now.
Yeah, I think we can end it there. Great. Thank you. So I want to give a massive thank you to everyone who's here. We're at the close of our panel, so thank you for taking questions that have come through from people in the room and on the live stream. I'm going to hand it off to Vicky White for some closing commentary for all of us today, before we close out for all of you on the live stream and before we start the networking event for those of you who are physically here.
Thanks, Shelby. I'll make it really quick because I just want to thank everybody who's here in person for attending. I really hope that you found the session useful. We'd love to hear your feedback. So as we are kind of milling around, please do let us know if you found it helpful, if there are things that we didn't cover that you want to know. If you feel like we didn't answer any of your questions, then please do feel free to ask those questions. We're also doing little interviews with people as well. So if you would like to be part of that, those will be sort of put on our social media platforms, then please let us know. And apart from that, thank you to everybody in the room. Thank you online. Thank you to all of our speakers this morning. I found it, I always learn something new, and I've been doing cyber for a little while now, so I always learn something new. And I think we've got refreshments as well for everybody who's here, and a chance to just have an informal chat. So thanks very much.
I will also say a very quick thank you to City. God, we all got very excited then. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. So thank you for supporting us in doing this physical event in Cape Town, as well as having the infrastructure to support the live stream. So thank you for that as well.